There's legitimate concern regarding the mercury issue in dentistry. Mercury does release from the silver fillings. It does accumulate in the body.
Do you insert mercury amalgam in this practice here?
No, I do not.
For the reasons you've just given?
Yes, for the mercury issue, yes.
And have you had your fillings, your amalgam fillings removed?
Yes, I have.
Again, for the same reason?
For concern with mercury, yes.
So if dental mercury enters and stays in the brain for most of our lives, then what evidence is there that it produces long-term damage? Testing humans for mercury damage over a lifetime would be a notoriously difficult and expensive study. No one's ever tried. But suddenly, researchers are on the verge of a breakthrough. These are the dental records of scores of elderly nuns in a convent in Wisconsin. They may hide part of the answer to one of amalgam's greatest riddles. Is there a link between the mercury in fillings and the deadly disease of Alzheimer's? A unique study, starting with these files, may provide the clues.
11, 12, 13, 14. We got 14. So we made it.
These sprightly ladies have made it into a fulfilling old age. They've agreed to take part in a scientific gamble by donating their brains to medical researchers who will look for a positive relationship between dental amalgams and Alzheimer's disease.
37. 38. I pass.
And already some scientists are reaching provisional conclusions about the dangers of dental amalgams. Is there any doubt in your mind about the association between mercury and Alzheimer's?
I would not want to make the statement that mercury causes Alzheimer's disease, but there is no doubt in my mind that low levels of mercury present in the brain could cause neuronal cell death, and this could lead to dementia, which would be similar to Alzheimer's disease.
Dr. Boyd Haley, Professor of Medicinal and Biochemistry, has just made a dramatic breakthrough while investigating the implication of dental amalgam with Alzheimer's. He's discovered that even tiny quantities of the metal can produce changes in the brain that are identical to changes caused by the disease.
As you increase the mercury concentration, this protein goes from being very abundant to very low.
Specifically, the mercury inhibits the efficiency of tubulin, a protein essential to brain cells.
We can't go inside a living human being and look at their brain, so we have to work outside and do scientific experiments such as we've done. And to the best that we can determine with these experiments, mercury is a time bomb in the brain waiting to have an effect. If it's not bothering someone when they're young, especially when they age, it could turn into something quite disastrous.
So in the worst case scenario, what happens to the human being?
You would become demented.
Although Dr. Haley knows there's still no proof of damage, he, for one, has heard enough. What did you do about your own fillings?
I still have one amalgam filling, but when I have them replaced, I have them replaced with non-amalgam material.
Why?
Because I'm afraid enough of my own research and concerned enough that I don't want it in my mouth, nor do I want it in the mouth of my children or my wife.
Are you aware of the association between dental mercury and Alzheimer's?
As far as I know, there is no association with mercury and Alzheimer's.
Are you aware of the paper by Dr. Boyd Haley at the University of Kentucky?
By name, no.
Gentlemen, this was published in 1993. Isn't this a document that should be on your desk?
I come back to the point that we rely on expert advice.
But what kind of advice are you getting if these papers are not being put on your desk so that you can inform your dentists and members of the public?
Well, we look to a group of people, including our consultants, but also we rely upon the Department of Health and other bodies to let us have their results and their advice about results that they would have read in papers.
These are key papers, Mr. Hunt. These are very important papers, aren't they? I mean, a relationship between dental amalgam and Alzheimer's is not an unserious matter.
No, we shall certainly look at that paper.
A few dentists who have read the new data now refuse to handle amalgam at all. The majority who do are warned by their dental associations to deal with it with considerable caution and respect. Some even treat it like a journey to a hostile planet. But given their occupational exposure to dental amalgam, they are taking sensible precautions. But are all these precautions enough to protect the dentists and their assistants from the mercury vapor that they'll encounter in the workplace? One long-established and apparent fact has always consoled dentists who work with amalgam. If it doesn't hurt us, they argue, how can it harm you, the patient? But in a dramatic new study to be published shortly, even that comforting truth is now revealed as yet another illusion. A dentist is tested for his speed of action and reaction as part of a complex assessment of his central nervous system. Dr. Diana ECHEVERRIA, a neurotoxicologist, has just completed a remarkable study. She tested American dentists to see whether they have the subtle but dangerous symptoms of mercury poisoning.
Well, the kinds of things that we have found are losses in function associated with the ability to move manually very small things with your hands, a manual dexterity problem. Other kinds of really distinct functions are concentration, the inability to concentrate. Actually, those are skills that anybody needs.
If I were to time how fast you could put this pen into these holes, or similar tasks, that a normal people might take, let's say, 1 second to find the right hole and very quickly make the connections. A person with a deficit would take more time, maybe 2 or maybe even 5 seconds. And so in the studies that Diana did, she was measuring things in milliseconds, which is even a more careful approximation of the time.
What are the implications?
The implications are that in the dental technicians, the mercury has caused very definite central nervous system disorders.
No one has ever tested human beings who have such a low level of mercury before. Dentists will be alarmed to learn that some of their physical functions and emotions are already being injured by exposure to such small levels of mercury vapor. It's only a question of time and research funds before similar tests are conducted on patients. And to add to the discomforting news, the difference in body mercury levels between dentists and patients is already too close for comfort. Doctor, is there an overlap between the lowest figure of exposure for dentists and the highest figure for ordinary patients with quite a lot of amalgam fillings?
Probably yes.
And does that mean then that a lot of patients are probably suffering the same symptoms that the dentists are suffering?
Well, that's the next research question that we need to ask ourselves, because we don't know for sure. We have indications that comparable effects are appearing just above that range. But the leading question now is whether or not we have a problem at that lower overlap level.
But that means at that level the safety margin is extremely small.
Very narrow, extremely narrow. That's a major concern. That's right.
Just tell me this, because people will say, okay, that's bad. It takes a microsecond longer to put a pen into a hole. Does it matter?
My greatest worry would be among the children. All right. Now, children are going to school. They are being taught things. They are being taught how to handle living situations, everyday situations. They're being given information that we hope they'll keep in their minds for a better way of life. It is conceivable that as they are being educated and as they are being trained to do something, that their training will not stay with them as long, that they may not be able to do things as quickly, and therefore they will not be able to be judged proficient in certain tasks.
If you write to the British Dental Association here in Wimpole Street asking about the safety of amalgam fillings, they'll send you a so-called fact sheet. This is it. It covers the subject of children by stating categorically that the evidence available to the BDA doesn't justify banning the use of amalgam in young children. Yet it's precisely the young who are most vulnerable to mercury poisoning.
Right. Put your hands up, please, if anybody in this room's got any fillings. Right. Put your hands down, please. Right.
These children at a Liverpool Comprehensive have on average a couple of fillings each. It's easy to demonstrate how the mercury vapor escapes from their small fillings. We invited an expert to bring a mercury vapor tester to check. The air around the fillings is measured.
Very slight movement there. Up to...
Even without stimulation, some mercury vapor is escaping from the filling.
Nice and hard.
Then the filling is rubbed to simulate chewing, brushing or grinding.
Filling it dry, just as it is after you've rubbed it. And we're going to try and measure it again.
This time there's no doubt the mercury vapor has begun to leak copiously, and this is the actual reading as